So, kids, we are live. Today, I'm going to tell you why Millennial Woes is going to get millions of white people killed. He's going to be responsible for the deaths of millions of white people. I'm going to tell you why that's all true today. I'm going to tell you why Millennial Woes is a weak man who creates hard times. But before we go, can you just give me a 1 in chat if you can hear me? I like to test the sounding. So can you give me a 1 in chat if you can hear everything okay? I should say, by the way, first of all, I'll tell you again. I don't really like doing it. It's not so much that I wanted to do a live stream. I just wanted to have a quick whinge in a video. But when I'm going to read something, it's just I don't know how to do that on a camera. So it's just easier to do a live stream. So thank you very much, Alphabet Cat. Thank you very much, Basingstoke Steve. Thank you very much. I died from COVID-19, gain of function. Thank you, Punk Bastardo. Thank you as well to everyone else, who's turned up to listen to this. I'm just going to whinge about Millennial Woes. Of course, I'm a bit disorientated because and by the way, this is why I'm a bit late, is because I've been watching the England match and I didn't get back from that where I've been watching it until a little bit later than I thought. So I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place. Thank you, Grief, for the 1. I'm all over the place. I hope this is going to work, but I'm sure it will. But anyway, let's get started if you can all hear the audio. So what do I want to say? Because recently, well, listen, let me begin by saying I don't fucking give a shit about anything at this point in time, as I haven't done for a long time. And I'm not making this video. In the past, if you'd gone back 2 years ago and I was making a hate video about Millennial Woes, you might have argued that despite all my anger and vitriol, it was actually coming from a good place. And I was trying to, to inform Millennial Woes. We're long past that situation now because I hate everybody and everything. And that includes Millennial Woes. And there's no point in this video. He's not going to listen. No one else is going to listen. But I'm going to say it anyway because it just annoys me how unbelievably easily people like Millennial Woes have their strings pulled, how easily they fall for the latest, for whatever psyop. And then they turn around and say that people who are telling him this are the nutcases, that they're paranoid, etc., etc. So I'm just going to have a whinge at Millennial Woes, but, he won't listen to this. No one else will listen. So there's no fucking point, except I wanted to get it off my tits. So that is that. So what did I want to say? It's all about some movie called Citizen Vigilante. Don't really know much about it. Haven't seen it. Don't really care. Woes did a movie review of it and an analysis of it. And then lots of people in his comment sections were saying, well, why are you getting so carried away by this? And so he wrote another article, responding to them. By the way, Millennial Woes, I'm going to tell you, all of these people in your comment sections pointing out that actually it's not the movie you think it is. It's just, it's by them, it's subversive, etc., etc. All of these people are just Satanists who are testing you. In fact, we don't even know because they're all from all these people who constantly challenge Millennial Woes on Twitter, for example. They've all got anonymous accounts. So maybe it's just one person taking up different accounts to try and challenge you. What these people are trying to do is they're trying to point out the truth to you, and that matters. And yet you are blinded to the truth, and that will ultimately cause you to cause the deaths of millions of white people because you are unawares of the trap that the Satanists are leading you into. You're completely unaware of this, and you're unable to understand any of this. But let me just come to this because I would really like to know. I would really like to know why it is that Millennial Woes is so blindsided on all these matters. And I've got 4 suggestions, which I don't really like any of them. One is that he's just not that clever. I'm not sure that's the truth. Another is that he's in a bad psychological state, and that is what is blinding him to seeing the truth. And a third is that he's just so demoralized and depressed by what's going on. But again, I don't think that's what's true. And then there's another one, which is that he can't accept that there's people in this world cleverer than him. But anyway, let me come back to all of those things, which, by the way, I can. So just before he gets back and says, oh, Thomas thinks he's the cleverest person in the world. Well, actually, I don't. My whole shtick from 2015 onwards has been the elite who control the world. They're very fucking clever, and they've got us all by the balls. But let's begin. So let me just go to the start of this article. I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to read it all. It's called "The Arguments Against Citizen Vigilante." It's on Millennial Woes' Substack. As I say, we're not going to read it all, but let me just read some parts and then I'll react to it. So, first of all, under the heading, the lead actor is Jewish. First, Armie Hammer didn't write the script, so his ethnic background is of limited relevance. However, people on our side often take this kind of thing as a sign that shenanigans are afoot. Even if he didn't write it, he took the lead role, which must mean he understands the film to be operating in Jewish interests. And therefore, the film must be operating in Jewish interests, even if we can't see how it is. So this is the first bit. Where I have to immediately, tell Millennial Woes off for getting it arse out of face. Because just to repeat, what he's saying is, he's saying the film, he's being sarcastic when he says the film must be operating in Jewish interests, even if we can't see how it is. But it'd be very easy to see how it is. It would be ridiculously easy to see how it is. Who can tell me, which clever student in the class can tell me how a movie about white people starting, a war against Muslims and immigrants. Can anyone in the class tell me how a movie about white people having a war against Muslims and immigrants might actually be useful to them? Can anyone tell me, oh, wait a minute, because if white people do start a war with Muslims and immigrants, what will happen is there'll be a war of attrition. So Europeans will kill Muslims, Muslims and immigrants will kill Europeans, and it'll be a war of attrition. So maybe Millennial Woes needs to remind himself of something called, what was it called again? Was it World War I, where the French and Germans sat opposite or stood opposite each other, firing the shit out of each other so that they killed each other, which was a huge boon for the elite. Let's just call them that. So that was a huge bonus for them. They got one group of people to fight off another group of people in a war of attrition, and at the end, they'd all just killed each other, and the people behind the scam, the bankers, they just come along and they've aggrandized yet more power. And the idea that Millennial Woes just can't understand any of this. This is why I asked the question, like, why can he not understand this? All of this stuff, a movie like this will encourage, okay, let's suppose it encourages white people to take matters into their own hands and fight some kind of vigilante war against Muslims and immigrants. Well, guess what? They can give similar propaganda. The people who made this movie can give similar propaganda to the Muslims and immigrants, and then they will start fighting back. And then what you'll get is a civil war, and everyone will kill each other. It'll be a war of attrition. And when that happens, you've fought two enemies off against each other, and you can come along and take over. So is that really so difficult to understand? Is that really so unbelievably difficult to understand that might be what's going on here? To which someone like Millennial Woes might say, yeah, but we've got to fight back. And lots of people will say on the distant right, yeah, but we've got to fight back. What we're meant to do, just do nothing. To which I will say, you have to understand that the game is rigged against you. You have to understand that the game is rigged against you, that the people in charge are very clever, and they have completely rigged the game against you. So no, I'm not sure that in this case, fighting back is going to be any good, because it's just playing into their hands. Because, look, I understand. This is annoying. It's demoralizing because the game is rigged against you, and they've got you checkmate, because if you move this way, you get checked. And if you move that way, you get checked as well. If you fight back, you're playing into their hands. If you don't fight back, you're playing into their hands. But it comes back to it because the distant right will always blather on and on and on about how intelligent Europeans are and how that should by rights give them dominance over, other groups of people who come here. Well, okay, fine. But if you're going to play that game, then you have to respect the hierarchy of intelligence. And that means that you have to respect that the people who run this world are superbly intelligent and have got us in this sort of prison that we can't get out of. And you have to then say, well, if intelligence is the thing which because the distant right would say there should be a hierarchy based on intelligence. But if you accept that premise, then you also have to accept that the Jewish elite are at the top of that hierarchy, and they've got you in this pincer movement, and there's no way out of it. I mean, there is a way out of it, which is just to accept that they're very clever and control everything, and then there is an escape route. But I don't want to go into that. But there will be some people, Millennial Woes included, who will say, well, what are we meant to do? If we don't fight back, we're playing into their hands. If we do fight back, we're playing into their hands. To which I will say, unfortunately, the people in control are very intelligent. And if you're going to come out and say, we as Europeans are very intelligent and we should have a hierarchy with ourselves above other groups because we are more intelligent, then you have to accept as well, one consequence of that is that the elite Jewish people who run the planet, they're even more intelligent, and therefore they should be at the top of the hierarchy. And so they're entitled to put us in this prison that we can't get out of. But as I say, there is a way to get out of that prison. And that's just to have the humility to accept that what they've done is very clever. And then there is a way out. But anyway, I don't want to go into that. Let's go back. Let's go back to reading this. Let me just say this, because Millennial Woes is keen to point out that, is it the main actor, the lead actor? He's not really Jewish, he's Christian. But could someone please get the memo over to Millennial Woes that Christianity is just Messianic Judaism? As a rabbi once said, Christianity and Judaism are just two cheeks of the same arse. And this is another hilarious thing about Millennial Woes, because he calls me a nutcase. He calls me mentally ill. He says my own state of mind got the better of me. And he's always calling against the Jews. And then he says things like, we need a church in every village. Well, what's a church? It's just a synagogue in disguise. It's a temple to the famous Jewish man, Jesus Christ. So someone needs to get the memo across to this guy that Christianity is just Judaism in disguise. I mean, as I've tried to explain before, Millennial Woes is Jewish, and he should be proud of his Jewish origins because he's a descendant of Jesus Christ. He's a descendant of Jesus Christ, like a huge majority of Europeans are. But anyway. So let me just continue to read this. So let me read this. So this is another bone of contention. Millennial Woes says, Uwe Boll intends Sanders to be Jewish. This argument is that even if Hammer isn't really Jewish, his tattoo must mean that his character Sanders is Jewish, and this will condition the Gentile public to see Jews as our saviors. So in this movie, the vigilante has a tattoo, and it's basically a Hebrew tattoo. And, well, let me explain why this is done. This is to show you, this is a nod and a wink from the people who've made the movie to tell you they are in charge. They are in charge. They are in charge. They're in charge. But I don't like what Millennial Woes says, because he says, this argument is that even if Hammer isn't really Jewish, his tattoo must mean that his character Sanders is Jewish, and this will condition the Gentile public to see Jews as our saviors. First, do you really think Uwe Boll was thinking at that level? No, I don't think Uwe Boll was thinking at that level, Woes, because Uwe Boll is just a cog in the machine. He's just a cog in the machine. So he's like Biden. Anyone with a brain understands that Joe Biden didn't run America. He's a puppet. He's a cog in a machine. And by the same token, Yui Boll is not, he's not the inspiration behind this movie. He's just he's just a pair of hands who's taken control of a project which other people have wanted and which other people have guided. So no, I don't think Yui Boll was thinking on at that level. I think the real people who made the movie, I think they were thinking at that level. They wanted to put a tattoo in, well, it's not, the reason they put the tattoo in is just to troll you or to show you a sign and say, are you Millennial Woes capable of understanding that this is again made by the people who you claim to be against? That's all they're saying. Millennial Woes continues. Second, even if he did hope for this effect, do you really think it will succeed? Do you think the normie general public, glimpsing that tattoo, will recognize it as a Hebrew symbol, then assume it means the character is Jewish, and from that take the lesson that Jews are our saviors? If you do, I think you need to be on medication. Ooh, well, here's the thing, Woes, you're completely missing the point. It's all flown over your head because you're misunderstood, right? First of all, if in this movie, the people behind it wanted to show you that the superhero is Jewish, that the savior is Jewish, then they're not, in this case, they're not doing that to condition people. They're just doing it. They're just doing it to say, there you go. That's how it is. We are in charge. That's how it will be. That's what they're saying. They're not doing it. They're not doing it to condition people because, as you say, most people won't notice the tattoo, but highly intelligent people will notice the tattoo. And the point is, you're then meant to think, oh, so it's them again. They're always in charge. They control absolutely everything. There is no escape. It's always them. They're in complete control, from which you might have the humility to say, there's no way out of this. They're very clever. They control everything. So that's why it's in. The tattoo is put in as a sign to people like you. It's to test people like you, Millennial Woes, to see if you are awake, to see if you can spot a pattern. And it seems in this case you can't. In all likelihood, when ordinary viewers glimpse that tattoo, none of them will have a clue what it is. If this was a bold maneuver to subtly condition the masses into accepting Jewish supremacism, it was even more far-fetched and ridiculous than his film storyline. Yeah, but again, that's not true. It's not that. The sign is in so that, for example, someone like Henrik Palmgren will look at it and say, yeah, it's a load of shit. That's why it's in. So that someone like Henrik Palmgren, who can read the signs, will look at it and say, yeah, same old shit. That's why it's in. And whilst at the same time, someone like Millennial Woes, you will prove yourself to be absolutely incapable of seeing the truth, even though it's waved in front of your eyes, which then questions that, that then brings into question your mental health. I don't know whether Millennial Woes is state of mind is getting the better of him, but it might be. The vastly more likely explanation for the tattoo being there is that Boll, insisting on toplessness for the sex scene, didn't have the budget to digitally erase the tattoo, or more likely didn't care and didn't know what it meant anyway. So it's all, this is just ridiculous. It's all just, so Woes is saying it's all just a big accident. It's all just a big accident. It's all just an absolute accident that this Hebrew tattoo has ended up in this movie, which it's not an accident. Again, if you know the signs, you know it's not an accident. Don't be silly. If he did know what it meant, he probably hoped it would help stave off allegations that he, Boll, is a white supremacist. That's actually not a bad explanation, but I don't think that's true. That's not a bad rationale. Anyway, let's continue. So Millennial Woes then goes on to says, the movie is distributed by a Jewish-owned company. Let me just see. Do I want to read this? I don't think I do. Okay, so this is really stupid because He says it's the movie is distributed by a Jewish-owned company. But in his final paragraph, he then says, none of this changes the effect the film is likely to have on the general public. And again, this is where Millennial Woes is just absolutely retarded. Because what he's saying is that white people, Europeans, need to see a movie like Citizen Vigilante in order to start fighting back. And therefore, even if it was, inadvertently created by them, it's still having a positive effect on European people. I mean, this is just retarded because, again, it goes back to it. It goes back to it. How do you know, if it's created by them, how do you know they're not just riling white people up? They're not just riling Europeans up to have a war with Muslims and immigrants, which will simply be a war of attrition. Because, as I said, they can give Muslims and immigrants an equal and opposite set of propaganda and get them riled up in the same way, and then it's just gonna lead to a war of attrition with loads of people dying, and then the people in charge will come along and have even more power than they had before. So I think, let me just see that I made that point. Yes, I did. So let me just keep going. Let me just. Okay, here's another point by Millennial Woes. He says, it's exactly what the establishment wants, ! And his first, so this is what people are saying. Certain people in Millennial Woes' circles are telling him this movie is exactly what the establishment wants. To which Millennial Woes' response is, how? ? How? How on earth? Well, for the reasons I've just explained to you. Because it will just lead to, if it's done correctly, it will just lead to a war of attrition with Muslims, with immigrants. They will get an equal and opposite set of propaganda. And so Europeans and Muslims and immigrants, or Europeans on the one side, Muslims and other immigrants on the other side, will fight each other and have a war of attrition. So why do you have to be so spectacularly confuddled by this very simple issue? The next thing Millennial Woes says, the banning is part of the trick. Again, some people in Millennial Woes' comment sections have been saying it's all a psyop. They banned the movie. So this movie, if you don't know the story, was banned, with the establishment wanting to ban it and censor it. But then it still got out anyway. And now people are watching it. And Millennial Woes mocks at all of this. But let me just read a bit. So he mocks at the idea that it was deliberately banned in order to make it sort of popular. Let's read what Millennial Woes says. He says, this argument is that Boll and his supposed Jewish collaborators ensured the film got banned in Germany so as to achieve notoriety and sell the idea that the film is dangerous, when actually it's exactly what the establishment wants. Well, let me just take this apart, because, again, this is where Millennial Woes is just a muppet. It's got nothing to do with Boll, okay? So anyone with a brain is not saying that Yui Boll, or whatever he's called, ensured the film got banned. We're saying that the secret rulers of this earth have contrived to have this movie made, and when they've released it, they've contrived to have it partially banned, although it's not really been banned. They've contrived to kick up a fuss about it being banned in order to make people think, oh my God, the establishment doesn't want you to know about this, although in secret they do want you to know about this, which is about subversion. And this is where I hate people like Millennial Woes, because Millennial Woes will complain all day about Jewish subversion, but then when we say, yeah, but Jewish subversion's very clever, it's not just it can get very complicated and convoluted and intricate. People like Millennial Woes then say, no. So Millennial Woes, he's one of these people who complains about Jewish subversion, but he thinks that the Jews are really bad at subverting things. So they couldn't run a psyop to save their lives. It goes back to that thing I've often said. They think that if Jewish subversion, the limit of Jewish subversion is for some idiot to go on Twitter and in one Twitter post say, "Dear fellow white people, we've really got to embrace diversity." And then in another tweet say, "As a Jew, I think that things, should be arranged around me." That's what people like Millennial Woes think is the limit of Jewish subversion. But the point I'm making is that these elite Jews, who in lots of ways are actually Christians, although they're Satanists, it's complicated. But let's call it the cabal. The thing about the cabal is that they are ridiculously clever. They are ridiculously clever. And that whole business of finding Jewish people on Twitter claiming to be white in one post and Jewish in another, that in itself is a psyop. It's to see who is to see which people can't understand that that's not really the limit of their skill set. It's to give people like Millennial Woes a sense of superiority, which is not really earned. Let me just see what else I'm going to read. I don't think I'm going to read much more. But let me just come to this point. Millennial Woes says, fifth, to what extent has the film exploded because of the ban, really, rather than because of endorsements from Elon Musk? And again, Millennial Woes cannot understand that Elon Musk is part of the system. He's having his strings pulled. And if he endorses it, it's not because it's part of he's not endorsing it because he thinks, but Elon Musk is not endorsing it because he's just a libertarian, free thinker who's decided to endorse it. He's endorsed it because his handlers have told him to endorse it. Look, I mean, I don't even think that Elon Musk runs his Twitter account. If you've ever heard Elon Musk speak in public, he doesn't seem to have any of the convictions that he has got on Twitter. It's as someone said apropos the Twitter account of Rupert Lowe, that Rupert Lowe's Twitter account is not being run by Rupert Lowe, because if you look at the man on camera, he seems a different personality to who he is on Twitter. But anyway, that will cause a ruckus. But anyway, let me just come to a few final points. Millennial Woes says, nothing happens by accident. This is an example, says Millennial Woes, of the everything is a psyop mentality, paranoid nuttery. It holds that virtually everything that animates the public towards our ideas is actually a trick to ward them away from our ideas by misdirecting them. Limited hangouts. So if something looks too good to be true, that's because it's false. Don't be fooled, people. Well, it's yeah. I mean, you don't know. Okay, so there's a little mistake in here, which is that Millennial Woes says that everything that animates the public towards our ideas is actually a trick to ward them away from our ideas. No, not necessarily. That's not what people are saying. It might be a trick. This movie might be a trick in order to animate the public towards the ideas of people like Millennial Woes, rather than to ward them away from them. So no, Woes is misunderstanding something here. It could be that this movie, I think, is trying to move people. It's trying to shift people over to the kind of worldview espoused by people like Millennial Woes. And the reason they want that is because, as I said, they're trying to bring on a war of attrition between, Europe and Islam, or Europe and the third world. But this is okay. This is, I really want to take issue with this, because again, to repeat what Woes says, he says this is an example of the everything is a psyop mentality, paranoid nuttery. Okay, so can you do me a favor, Millennial Woes? Can you go to Henrik Palmgren and Apollonian Germ and tell them that they're paranoid nutters? because I saw Henrik Palmgren talking about the psyop behind this movie. I'm confident Apollonian Germ will see the psyop behind this movie. So can you go to them and call them paranoid nutters? Now, you won't do that. And Millennial Woes will say, oh, he's trying to cause division. No, I'm not. What I'm trying to say is, if you're going to consider those people, Apollonian Germ or Henrik Palmgren, as fellow people in the movement, and you're going to have them on at Christmas every year and have a 2-hour conversation with them, you might just like to let them know that you think that they're paranoid nutters. Do you know? Because that's what you're doing. I don't know how I don't know how you can live with this cognitive dissonance in your head to somehow think that those two people I've just mentioned, on the one hand, they're guests you have on at Christmas and you have a sensible conversation with them. And on the other hand, here, you're calling them paranoid nutters. And again, Woes will do this thing of saying, well, so Thomas Baden-Riess is trying to incite a fight between different members of the dissident right. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to point out that you're living in your own bubble. Like many people on the internet today, you live in this bubble where you dish out these insults, which are not, they're not directed at anyone, but if we examine them, they should be directed at people that you call your allies. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me that you can live in this state of cognitive dissonance where you're literally calling some of the people that you have on Millennial, in fact, probably lots of the people you have on Millennial, you're calling them paranoid nutters. So maybe you could mention that to them. That would at least be a beginning. You could hold them to account and say, right, you lot, you're paranoid nutters. What do you got to say for yourselves? But you're not going to do that. You're just going to have a cozy chat for 2 hours at Christmas with these people. And then later on, you're going to put out this essay and you're going to throw out this barb of paranoid nutters, but you're not actually going to address it at anyone who is disputing what you're saying about this movie. And again, Woes very smugly and with great hubris and naivety says, okay, so how does the success of Citizen Vigilante harm our cause? It doesn't. It helps our cause. So what's your cause then? To have a war of attrition with Islam so that loads of Europeans get killed? Is that your cause, Millennial Woes? See, that's what I'm saying. But anyway, let me just go to this final paragraph, which he calls conclusion. People in our sphere need to learn to take a win when it's handed to them. Well, exactly. It's been handed to you. It's not a win, darling. If it's just been handed to you like that, and it's got all these ciphers all over it telling you that it's a movie made by them. They're telling you it's goy slop, and you're slopping it up and saying it's great. We are so accustomed to losing, we can't believe it when something happens in our favor. So we invent reasons as to why it's actually a trick. No one is inventing a reason. Everyone there's a load of patterns which intelligent people can spot in this movie. You cannot spot those patterns for some bizarre reason. And then you're saying that those people who can spot the patterns are inventing reasons, but no, they're not. Instead of looking at the most likely explanation for something, we look for the most grotty explanation. No. People like me and others are just in a clean state of mind where we can take a sober look at what these things are about, and we can read the signs and realize that the same people who dish out all the propaganda we are accustomed to are dishing out another set of propaganda here. Instead of celebrating its most likely effects, we forecast the most detrimental effects it could have, then persuade ourselves that the thing was only made in the first place so as to have those unlikely detrimental effects. How is it unlikely? It's going to cause, all of this is just going to cause a big, movies like this, like Citizen Vigilante, it's just going to cause a big war of attrition between Europeans and Islam. It's not, I don't know what to say. If this movement were a mental patient, the psychiatrist would be rubbing his hands. Okay, again, Millennial Woes is just completely getting it wrong, because you are the mental patient. You're the one who's mentally ill. And actually, the elites behind this movie, they will be rubbing their hands. Well, I say they'll be rubbing their hands. They're probably thinking, oh my God, why is there no one? Why is there no opposition to us? Or why can no one see through our tricks? Even when we lay it on thick, people like Millennial Woes are so blind, so unbelievably blind, that they refuse to see any of this stuff. So I'm not even sure that the people behind this movie will be rubbing their hands at the reaction of Millennial Woes. They'll probably just, be puking down a toilet thinking, my God, the absolute state of these people that fall for all of this unbelievably stupid stuff. And if you're saying, well, Thomas, you're just demoralizing people by saying that it's yet another psyop, that everything's a psyop, well, I will say there will eventually be a way out of this. There is a way out of this. And it starts with accepting, it starts with having the humility to accept that the people in charge are in complete control, and they're ridiculously intelligent, and they're ridiculously well-versed into how to control everything, and how to make, psyop upon psyop upon psyop, and trick you in multiple ways. If you start with that humble position, if you have the humility to accept that, there is a way out of this, and it will come soon. But even if there isn't, I'm clever enough to be able to see this and recognize it as propaganda and think, well, in that case, if it is propaganda, where's it going? But anyway, I think that brings me to the end of what I wanted to read. But this is the point that I really wanted to get to. The point that I really wanted to get to is, why is it that Millennial Woes is utterly blind? He's utterly blind to the point where he has to ridicule his detractors. Now, I will say this. He's not completely blind, because there are other people in the distant right who simply, if you prodded them and said, look, come on, think about this. This is just a movie made by them. There's other people in the distant right, perhaps Keith Woods, who would just ignore that. So in credit to Millennial Woes, he is at least capable of listening to what people in his circles are telling him. But he is not capable for some reason of concluding that, again, the elite J's control everything. They literally control absolutely every movement, every piece of propaganda. They control the whole chessboard, every single thing. He's not capable of realizing that. So the question is, why? So the first thing we might say is that Millennial Woes just isn't clever enough. But I don't think that's the real issue. I don't think that's the real issue. I will say Millennial Woes does not have the same conspiracy grounding that people like me have got, or Apollonian Germ, where you're well versed in how clever and how tricky the controllers of this planet are. So Millennial Woes is not well versed in that, and I think that affects him. But I want to repeat: if you're going to say to me, Thomas, the reason Woes cannot see through this propaganda is because he's just not intelligent enough, I'm not convinced that's the issue. I'm not convinced that's the issue at all. The second thing that pops into my mind is that actually it's because he's in a negative psychological state. He's in a negative psychological state because his own personal life is in a mess. Remember, Millennial Woes is a guy who hates spring. I think you're in a pretty dark place with your life if, when spring arrives, you feel disgust or hate or unhappiness. So I think a possible reason is that Millennial Woes is in an unhealthy state of mind because he's unhappy with himself, and that's why he doesn't have the strength of character to look this propaganda in the eye and see it for what it is. But again, I'm not sure that's correct. So he's a third. This is a third possibility that I'm playing with, which is that Millennial Woes is just completely demoralized by the state of the world, by clown world, and he wants there to be an out. He wants there to be a way, out of clown world and into something better. And therefore, he is just desperately latching on to anything which seems like a hopeful sign. But I don't think that's true either. I don't think that is true. I don't believe that is true, because I'm not convinced that Millennial Woes does hate clown world in, for example, the way that I hate it. I hate clown world so much, I am desperate to get out of here. I am desperate for any ticket out of here, because I hate clown world so much and I'm really depressed by it. But I'm not sure Millennial Woes is. That's the thing. When I tried to tell Woes there would be some way out of this, he didn't jump at the chance and think, great, there's help is coming, hope is coming. He did the opposite. I'm not sure that Millennial Woes is particularly frustrated by clown world. And therefore, again, it doesn't really make sense that he is just, he falls for this propaganda because he's just desperate for any kind of any way out of this mess that the world is in. So that then brings me to a fourth possibility. And the fourth possibility I thought up is that Millennial Woes will simply not allow for the fact that other people, especially Jewish people, are more intelligent than him. He will not allow for this fact. He cannot allow for this fact that there are other people more intelligent than him. He doesn't like the idea that there are Jewish people more intelligent than him. And so what he does is, if he is given evidence of this superior intelligence, he just ignores it. So is that what's going on? Because it's a really peculiar thing that he ignores all these signs, which is a display of lack of intelligence on his part. He ignores all these signs, displaying a lack of intelligence on his part, which then allows him to think he is really intelligent and there aren't any people out there who are more intelligent. Is that what this is about? Is that the psychology of Millennial Woes, that he has to position himself as, if not the most intelligent person in the world, but one of the most intelligent people in the world? And so he is refusing to accept that there's a group of people who are way ahead of him and way more intelligent than him, and who have got themselves into this ridiculous level of authority and power where they literally control everything. They control all the nonsense propaganda that Millennial Woes doesn't like, but at the same time, they control all the propaganda that Millennial Woes does like. So is that what the issue is? That Millennial Woes will just not accept that there are more intelligent people out there than him, or that there are Jewish people out there who are more intelligent than him? Is that the issue? Because look, I will say I accepted that a long time ago. Back in 2015, I realized these people who control the world, they are very fucking clever. They're ridiculously clever. But I didn't feel up against, I didn't feel like my ego was rubbing up against them. And I think that's partly because, when I was a kid, I never said I want to be the greatest propagandist or psychological manipulator that's ever existed. In the same way that at different parts of my life, I've said, I want to be the best scientist in the world, or I want to be the best artist in the world. So it's not like, and obviously, just to be clear, I'm not the best artist in the world, and I'm not the best scientist in the world. And sometimes, when I came across artists who were better than me and scientists who were better than me, I felt jealous. But I still had the decency, to push my ego aside and say, okay, fair enough. Those people are better at science than me. Those people are better at art than me, way better on a totally different level. So I could still do that. But the point I'm trying to make is, it's never like in my life I wanted to be the greatest propagandist in the world or the greatest psychological manipulator in the world. So it's very easy for me to take my hat off to those people that are, because I'm not competing against them. But the hypothesis I'm exploring here is that Millennial Woes is somehow competing against these people. Is that true? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But it pops into my head that that might be true, that Woes kind of feels like he's up against these people, and so he can't concede that they're more intelligent than him because, well, you know what? I don't know. But this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if someone, I don't know, I cannot understand it. I cannot understand why Millennial Woes is blinded blind to this propaganda. I don't understand why. I genuinely don't, and that's a genuine question I'm asking. I've come up with 4 explanations there. I'm not sure any of them is true, but maybe someone can tell me. Maybe someone knows, and then when that happens, maybe I will feel less annoyance with Millennial Woes. Maybe then I'll leave him alone. Maybe I will just think, okay, fine. I don't, it doesn't annoy me anymore because now I understand why he is falling for this obvious propaganda. So that's that. If someone can tell me why this is, why Millennial Woes is blind to these things, I'd like to know, because it might cause me to give up my obsession with him. Just in case he doesn't know. Yes, of course I'm obsessed. I'm annoyed. I'm obsessed by Millennial Woes. I find him annoying now. He called me mentally ill. He said my own state of mind got the better of me. Not true, not true, not true. But anyway, who cares? All of that's in the past. So listen, I'm going to wrap up there because I think, let me just, I think I said everything. I think I said everything that I wanted to. I don't think, oh, yes. Listen to me. I think I said everything. So that's great. If you have any questions in the chat, you can put a capital Q and ask the question now, and I'll try to answer it. I'm sorry I haven't looked at the chat per usual. Hang on. I'm sorry I haven't looked at the chat as per usual. But as I say, this wasn't meant to be a live stream. I find it easier to do live streams than to record videos because I don't understand the technology of screen share when it comes to cameras. So I just do live streams instead. If you have a question, please ask it now. Otherwise, forever hold your peace, and I will be on my way out. Hang on, I'm just about to have a coughing fit. Dante DMC17Y says, what happened to your old videos? Can you re-upload them? Dante, they're all my old videos are just there. They've just been set to private. But why publish them again? I mean, but for one thing, that would take it would take me a day to go through them and think which ones I can publish, which ones I can't. If I do publish them, it's just going to mean that some leftist, hope not hate idiot will be able to find a clip of me saying something which they consider to be politically incorrect and get me into a load of trouble. So what the fuck do I care? I don't fucking care at this point. I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care. Oh, for God's sake, I can't even use my scroll up, scroll down. Oh my God. Living the Dream says, seen any good films recently, Thomas? I genuinely don't watch movies. I'm not a movie kind of person. So I haven't, in all honesty, living the dream. I'm not really a movie person. So, that's that. Weltschmerz says, could you please re-upload your interview with the learned elder of Zion? Well, look, Weltschmerz, I should have said this before. Go to Odyssey. All my videos are there. If you go to Odyssey, you'll find all my videos. So as much as I took them all down from YouTube, I think most of them are still up on Odyssey. Basingstoke Steve 9131 says, do you think Saka is underperforming because the World Cup has opened his eyes to clown world? I don't know that's the reason that Saka is underperforming. I mean, did Saka underperform today? Because I think, in fairness, he was only on for, he was only on for the last half hour, if that. And I think, him and Gordon came on, as did Eze. And I think, the point is it works. They got the 2 goals. I don't. I'm not one of these people. I Saka's been very good for a long time. So I'm not, some people say he's gone off the boil. I don't know. I don't study. I'm not clever enough about football to know that. I mean, I thought Madueke was good as well. You know, some because I used to be a winger. So sometimes as a winger, it's very hard because you want to take people on, but also you're scared about fucking up and giving the ball away. And you saw that from all four. You saw that from Gordon when he came on. You're always a bit tentative to, should I, because you want to take someone to the byline and get a cross in or something, but then you worry about losing possession. So, and you see that from all of the wingers today, from Saka, Madueke, and Gordon. They were all sort of playing. You always have to play a bit inside yourself, a bit conservative, because you're scared of losing the ball, and so often you don't try and take someone on, but you just pass it around. But anyway. Green Fez says, just arrived. Is this one staying public? Fairly baity title indeed. Well, actually, yes. Let me come to the title. This video will stay public for some time. Don't ask me how long, but I'm not kidding when I say that Millennial Woes will end up getting white people killed. I'm fairly sure that's what will happen. I'm fairly sure at this point that the satanic elite plan is to use people like Millennial Woes to cause a war of attrition between Europeans and Muslims, or Europeans and immigrants. And by the way, as well as causing a global war, which will be between people like America and Russia, but also America and Britain, or I don't know, Britain and France, or whatever. And I'm confident if the elite want to, they can absolutely take advantage of people like Millennial Woes and their gullibility and the fact that they are easily tricked and easily controlled. They can use people like Millennial Woes to lead people astray, and Millennial Woes will end up, getting the blood on his hands of many European people, many white people, and the white people who don't die because of his stupidity, they will thereafter hate him, so that Millennial Woes will be remembered as a hate figure. That's very possibly what will happen. I mean, look, that is what I understand at this point. The elite plan is to kill 90% of the population during the tribulation. So I think that's what the elites are going for. They're going for this World War III, which will also spill over into civil unrest, with civil conflict, which will be in some cases racial conflict, in other cases religious conflict, but in other cases ethnic conflict on the level of England versus Scotland. They want this World War III, and they want it to spill over into civil unrest and basically anarchy around the entire world. And so they're going to use leaders in the West to achieve this goal. And I wouldn't be surprised if they make use of people like Millennial Woes. Because, just to explain it, look, what I'm saying is they might raise up people like Millennial Woes, okay? And Millennial Woes might naively think, oh, we're going to win. But really all you're going to be doing is two things. First of all, they will raise up people like Millennial Woes to give Europeans a sense of nationalism for two purposes. First of all, so they can conscript them in wars, in stupid wars where lots of European people will get killed. But also the other reason they might raise up nationalism is that it will just cause a tension between, the Europe. Let's just focus on England. If they raise up nationalism in England, then it will just cause a ruckus with the immigrants and the Muslims. So it will just fuel the civil chaos, which in theory people like Millennial Woes are looking to avoid, or which in theory people like, I am certainly looking to avoid that. I don't want there to be civil chaos between Europeans and Muslims, or Europeans and immigrants. And lots of people in the distant right don't want that as well, which is why, they're saying this is not a good idea to put everyone together. But the point is that if Millennial Woes is gullible enough and naive enough, people like him will be promoted, his ideas will be promoted, but it will not lead to Europeans taking back Europe. It will lead to a war of attrition between Europeans on the one hand and Muslims on the other side, or Europeans on the one hand and immigrants on the other side. And Millennial Woes is very naive and would easily be someone who would step into that trap. And the two chief factors to his personality, which would cause all of these problems, is that first of all, he is naive and he is gullible, and he would never say to himself, okay, if I get raised to a position of power and my ideas start to promulgate, maybe that's just going to lead to a war of attrition. He'll never say that. He will just believe that if he gets raised to a position of power and his ideas are promulgated, then it will lead to, total European victory. So that's one character flaw with Millennial Woes, is that he lacks that wisdom and that perspective. But the other thing about Millennial Woes is he's just a very weak man. He's a very weak man. So, well, I mean, he's also blackmailable. We know he's deeply blackmailable because of this, this sex scandal that he had. But also he's very weak. So, for example, what the learned elders could do is they could raise Millennial Woes to some position of prominence, and they could get 10 sexy white girls to flock to his cause and say, oh, Millennial Woes, we love you. We can't believe you've actually stood up for us. We love you. We love you. We love you. And then once those 10, sexy blonde girls are around him and in his environment, let's then say that Elon Musk and Donald Trump or whoever say, let's have a war. Let's carry out a war, or let's carry out some kind of brother war. And there's this great popular uprising for a brother war. Then provided the 10 blonde girls say, yeah, bring on the war, Millennial Woes will just agree with that, because he wouldn't have the balls to stand up and say, oh no, this is a brother war. We don't want a brother war. So just for instance, let's suppose that the elite somehow contrive to get England in a war with France. The point is they could make that a very, using populism, they could get the English to say, yeah, kill all the French. And they could also get these 10 blonde girls who are just, stooges working for the elite. The 10 blonde girls could say, hooray, kill all the French. And then Millennial Woes would just have to say, yeah, kill all the French. Even though he doesn't want to say that, he would be forced to say it because he can't go against the 10 blonde girls, and he can't go against populism because he's a weak man. He's a weak man who's easily controlled, because he wouldn't be able to say, no, this is not what we wanted. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope I made that point succinctly. Gur33 says, where are your old videos, DS? Look, it's all on Odyssey. I think you're just asking pretend questions. You know that my videos are on Odyssey. Fred Good says, what did you think of England's performance tonight? Surely you are a better manager than your namesake, Thomas Tuchel. You know what, though? But I love Tuchel. This is really weird, right? Because some people were saying the other day, oh, Gareth Southgate he's such a nice man. Oh, he's such a nice man. And it really annoyed me. And I spoke out and said, I can't stand Gareth Southgate. And then someone said, but he's the second most successful England manager of all time. And he is. If you look at the stats, Southgate's record was very, very good. Very, very good. Oh, but my God, I couldn't stand Gareth Southgate. And honestly, I want to say he was just lucky every time. He was lucky every time. And if he had done things differently, we might have won some of these some of these different tournaments. On the other hand, I love Tuchel. I love Tuchel because he doesn't take any horseshit. He doesn't take any horseshit from anyone. So I love Tuchel. But bloody hell, watching England today, I was thinking, this is a poison chalice, because I was, for a long time in this match today, I was thinking, oh God, Thomas Tuchel, England takes another victim. You can imagine a meme of England as the Grim Reaper taking another victim. and you know, for all his credentials, and just you know, for all Thomas Tuchel's, he's got that kind of you know, he's got that will to power which says, you know, fuck off, idiots, you know, listen to me and get out of my way. We're going to win. That's Tuchel's mentality. But that said, today I was thinking, oh my god, you know, he's going to lose. They're going to go out, and you know, he's going to be public enemy number one. So thanks for the question, Fred Good. Grief says Bellingham. Yes, Bellingham was very good today, and always is. You know, he had the creativity to get them ticking. So, I'm just going to flick down because I have to go. Joe says, if Academic Agent played football, how long would it take before he had a heart attack from the shock of exercise? I don't know, Joe. I don't know. I don't know. Basingstoke Steve says, agree with you regarding Saka. Do you think Poe the person was cheering today in the library? I hope so. I hope she was sitting in a library cheering England on. Oh, Joe, in response to your question, I don't think there's any. You see, in athletics, it's obvious that you know, African runners and African American runners can just basically dominate most events. Not quite all, but most. In football, it's very even Stevens between, you know, whites and blacks in football. It's very even Stevens, and football is a very strange sport because you don't have to be of a certain physique to play it, because football is not just a game for, you know, chads who've got muscles. Well, I mean, it's especially, you know, most players are not particularly muscular. Okay, but some are. But the point is, think about Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi is tiny. Think about Peter Crouch. Crouch was a great footballer. You know, he was very, very tall and gangly. So football, or think about Jan Molby. Jan Molby was quite overweight, but brilliant, superb player. So football is one of those weird games where you don't have to have a certain physique to play it. So yes, it's an interesting business. Velschmerz says, can you collaborate with Claire Core or Poe the person? Well, obviously not with Poe. I don't want to collaborate with anyone. I want to get off this stupid planet. Living the Dream says, how did you escape SJJ's garage, and why have we not heard from him since the start of the stream? I saw SJJ was in the comments. I just very briefly had a look at them and saw SJJ was there. I don't know what's happened to him. Maybe he got bored by my lecture and thought, fuck this. I can't be bothered to listen to any of this. I'm going to go and, you know, spend some money. Let me just. Velschmed says, did Epstein have compromising material on Wozy? Well, I mean, if I don't know that Epstein did, but Woes is to some extent compromised. We know he is, because honestly, if those allegations came out, even if they didn't go to court and there was some kind of court case, his entire public reputation would be ruined. So he's obviously blackmailable. That's obvious. I mean, that's the third thing before. It said even if Woes was somehow to develop a stronger personality and not just, you know, be someone who agrees, you know, more or less with anyone. Well, if Woes was to develop a stronger personality, perchance, he would still be easily controllable because he doesn't want the bad press of what, you know, is scandal. So there you go. But just to be clear, I mean, look, I don't think I've got any sex scandals in the closet, but well, probably everyone has. I mean, these people in charge, they're very manipulative, they're very clever, they're very powerful, and they can do horrible things to you. So if they wanted to somehow blackmail me, they easily could, even though I've not really done anything. But you know, they can. The public is hysterical. Now, listen, I want to make something clear. I'm not saying that I've ever looked at pornography, okay? Because I literally have never, ever looked at pornography. but the elites could contrive the idea that I once looked at pornography. And because the general public is absolutely fucking brain dead, the general public would then say, oh my God, what did this guy, Thomas Baden-Riess, once look at pornography? That's disgraceful. So you see that they can, I'll get into this another time, but they can blackmail anyone because the public is just absolutely hysterical about everything. They essentially everyone is blackmailable. You know, it goes back to Bill Clinton. I don't like Bill Clinton, right? But I mean, for fuck's sake, can he not have an affair with his secretary? If you're the president of the United States, the one thing I might expect from you is that you're having an affair with your secretary. You know, I don't like Bill Clinton, but I like the fact he had an affair with his secretary. But the public is so fucking absolutely ridiculous and so easily whipped up into a hysteria that guy got into trouble for having an affair with his secretary. So this is what I'm saying. Everyone is blackmailable for a million reasons. And one major reason is that the public is hysterical. I died from COVID-19, gain of function says, how do we get out of clown world? Well, the elites are meant to be doing something to help us get out. But you know what? I don't know. And by the way, I'm very scared that the elites might try to, well, I don't know. The problem is I've got a big ego. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. Weltschmerz says, do you have a Telegram channel? Absolutely not, Weltschmerz. The best thing I ever did was deleting Telegram. Can't be bothered with it. Hate it. You know, I was on there in the Christmas of 2023 for about 2 months or something. Absolutely detested it and glad to have gotten away with it. Gotten away from it. Okay, anyway. Interdimensional Lizard says, Jeff Grappi has embarked on a looks-maxing journey. How many more offspring could this allow him to produce? I don't know. I briefly heard that in passing, but I don't know what he's doing. He's got about 5 kids already, so, you know, or maybe he's got more than that. I'm sure he can get up to 10 or 20. You know, he seems very, he seems very effective at the old, rumpy-pumpy. Joe says, will Ed Dutton's stomach keep growing until it is as big as a beach ball? I don't know. You'll have to ask him. Thomas has for sure looked at himself in the mirror in the nude blackmail material. Is that because they've got cameras behind mirrors? I mean, look, for all I know, well, I've heard stories that every electronic device that you've got can act as a camera. So essentially, you've got secret cameras all over your house. So I mean, this is the horrible times we are living in. And Georgina says that I think she's saying 6 because she's saying JFG's got 6 children. But anyway, listen, I think it's time. Weltschmerz says, I'm having impure thoughts about Poe the person. Well, good for you. Good for you, Weltschmerz. But I think we will wrap it up there because I've waffled on long enough and annoyed everybody. So take care, kids. Thanks very much for listening. Have a great day. And thanks for tuning in and telling me that the sound is working properly. And sorry I didn't get time to read all your comments, but I appreciate you all being there. So take care and get ready to see an ignominious defeat by Mexico from the England team. And, then everyone will be mad with Tuchel. So take care, kids. Thanks very much for watching. Ciao, ciao.